hands and a 5.
O God of mercy, at whose call the ocean waters rise and fall, protect the people on the sea who from oppression seek to flee. O hear us as our prayers we speak for those who safe asylum seek. They come from lands where... Perfect.
Now you're right. I would have used yes. So no. They were better.
I just learned that yesterday. I saw a podcast. She talked to her dad, like, he was a big shot at NBC or something. And Uncle Doodles was just running around the house. Great moments, all moments.
Uncle Doodles. Wow.
How are you all?
Good. Good. We're good.
Welcome to our Immigration Sunday worship service this morning. We are going to begin with our opening hymn, Let Not the Needy Be Forgotten, and please stand if you are able. Let not the weary be forgotten, and let not the hope of the poor be stripped away. The victims of war, the refugees pouring in, the kidnapped and trafficked girls, the families torn apart. Let not the weary be forgotten, and let not the hope of the poor be stripped away. Pray, what is the task for people of faith when those who flee for their lives arrive to permanent second class? Let not the weary be forgotten, and let not the hope of the poor be stripped away. How great is the breach, the fault line through every town, a wound not allowed to heal, corroding the ties that bind. Let not the weary be forgotten, and let not the hope of the poor be stripped away. Communities thrive when those who are safe take risks for those under threat and fear, to make sanctuaries bloom. Let not the weary be forgotten, and let not the hope of the poor be stripped away.
Blessings and grace to you this day. What a joy it is to be back in your midst after a 12-week sabbatical. Oh, thank you. I have missed you. I have missed this place. My heart is filled with gratitude for the gift of this significant time, which I filled with many family milestones and important work towards some major life transitions. So we'll chat over coffee. And of course, a highlight in the last 12 weeks was traveling with 20 beautiful, incredible Plymouth folk to the sacred island of Iona, Scotland. I'm hoping that our travelers will have an opportunity in the near future to share with you our experiences. But what a blessing indeed to return on this significant Sunday, Immigrants Sunday, living our faith, justice for immigrants. And I know there's new faces and there's probably new folks watching. And just in case you don't know, my name is Beth Hoffman Faith, and I'm the Minister for Congregational Care and Worship here at Plymouth. And again, I'm so glad to be back. And today is a significant day. There's lots happening. You will hear from several people during our worship experiences this morning of their work with and observation of our immigrants in our midst and farther away. At 10 o'clock, I'm so delighted that the Reverend Dr. Del McCormick is with us to present with a few Plymouth folk during our forum. That is the only sort of gathering at 10 today because it's just so significant. Del has worked tirelessly for decades around assisting migrants, refugees, and immigrants, particularly at the southern border. She was our amazing guide and companion when a group of us traveled to the Arizona-Mexico border in February of 2020. and you're going to hear from some of those folks today too. So 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, please come to Forum, but also don't pass up the opportunity to spend some time in Jones Commons. There's music, there's food, and there are many other organizations who are set up representing immigrants in our communities that may be able to share some information with you. So stick around. That also happens today after our 11 o'clock service too. During the 12 o'clock hour, there'll be lots of activity in Jones Commons if you plan to spend the entire morning with us. And as always, I've come back to a very busy, vibrant, active church. There's so much going on. I love some of the changes that I've seen, and I'm especially delighted that we've launched what we're calling our ambassador program. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a little bit of red in the sanctuary. I'm going to invite our ambassadors to stand up and show off their vests. So if you're new to Plymouth or not, when you have a question, these are the folks to go to. I hear they can answer anything that you're wondering about. So here you go. That's your challenge today. Seek out a red vest and ask them a question. Maybe it's about Plymouth, maybe it's not. Just see what happens. But what an exciting opportunity. Our ambassadors are volunteers who feel especially pleased to welcome you and to share with you a little bit of Plymouth story. There are other things happening. Today at 4 p.m., we launch a Plymouth Chamber Music Series once a month in Guild Hall. On Sunday at 4 o'clock, there'll be a special offering. And today, you won't want to miss Clara Oswoski debuts Jonathan Dove's new song cycle, On the Threshold. She promises to be beautiful. 4 o'clock. It's not always going to be the same Sunday of the month, so you need to really stay tuned to which Sunday it is. But once a month, 4 p.m. Chamber Series. Now I look to the week, and on Monday, October 10th, our Climate and Environmental Justice Task Force has a monthly meeting in which they have special speakers, and everyone's invited. You're welcome to register. Tomorrow evening is information about the Inflation Reduction Act and decarbonization. And so I would invite you to go to the Plymouth website, plymouth.org, or check that Friday email, which is so important for the news of the week, and register so you can attend. As we move through the week, on Friday, October 14th at 7 p.m., we're really pleased to promote two of our partners' special work. Zamia Theater, who offices here in Plymouth Church, and Beacon Housing Initiative, which many of you know quite a bit about, are partnering together to present Prairie Homeless Companion, a dramatic, I don't know if it's a dramedy, it's a dramatic presentation. You can find more information at beaconinterfaith.org. There was information that was sent in our Friday email. There are tickets available. I really hope that Plymouth shows a strong turnout. The performance is not here. It is at another church in the area. So again, there's lots going on, and I just don't have time this morning to mention everything, so stay tuned. Ask an ambassador, look at our website, make sure you're signed up for our Friday email. Philip has asked me to announce that next Sunday at 11 o'clock service, we're so pleased to welcome back Tony Ross, who's the Minnesota Orchestra principal cellist, who delights us time and time again when he can come and join us for worship, and he'll be with us next Sunday at 11 o'clock, and he will be playing the prelude, which begins at 10:50. And now I get to welcome Dwayne forward with an invitation to our annual giving campaign.
Thank you, Beth, and welcome back. And I am pleased to be joined up here with Peter Eichten, one of our deacons. I had the pleasure of spending some time with the deacons the other night, and I am here to tell you, Plymouth, we are blessed. We are blessed indeed. The earth has yielded its increase, and God, our God, has blessed us. It is time now to ask you to begin thinking about and discerning your financial support for Plymouth Church. And I'm telling you, it's not a better time to start thinking about it. I know you've noticed it. We have been doing good work. We have been expanding our program. We've been excited about welcoming people, especially since we've come out of a period of quarantine. We have opened this building up to this community, and we have been ambitiously offering ourselves up to this community. And we need your help. We need your help. We need you to begin to think about what Plymouth is doing, what you want Plymouth to do. And I want to let you know, we have heard from you. We have heard from you about the things that you are looking for, the things that you desire, the things that you've been enjoying. And so part of our goal has been to try to expand our reach, expand our program, to dig deeper in our own spiritual formation and spiritual growth. So exciting things like bringing on a director of spiritual formation, exciting things like expanding our offerings, including both music and art and our activities and partnerships with the neighborhood. You are making that happen. And you know what? We need to continue to do it. And so we are looking for you to go into a time of reflection, prayer, and discernment about how you can help us continue this level and this quality of church. And so when I say we're blessed, we're blessed. The other night, we spent some time with the deacons talking about our dreams for this community. And I am excited. I tell you, if I start dancing a jig, I am Pentecostal. If I start dancing, you will know why. But I wanted Peter to come up and just say a quick few words about it, because that was a very powerful, special time together. And it excited me about what we are up to here in this church and what's going on and how you can help us continue that work.
One of the things we talked about a lot was joy. And there's been so much joy, especially since we've been back together. And to live generously is to fulfill our commitment to each other, to fulfill our commitment to our God. So I just ask us all, there's lots of ways that we can live generously. So I would just ask that you pray about that, think about that, and live as generously as you possibly can.
Thank you.
There are a lot of moving parts to our worship this morning, and I'm very grateful to Mary Kay Sauter and the team that she had from the Immigration Welcoming Working Group who put this morning together. I know if I try to name you, I'm going to forget someone. So, but lots have been happening for at least the last 6 months, including we're so pleased to have some special musicians, and I'm going to ask Laura Caviani to give them a little introduction.
It's exciting to share with you today that two of my dearest friends, Carlos Diaz and Donna McCurdy, will be joining us in worship. Carlos is from Colombia. He's a singer-songwriter, guitarist, and you will see in the bulletin the beautiful lyrics that he's written regarding issues surrounding immigration and social justice. And his partner, Donna McCurdy, is a wonderful singer who brings these lyrics to life in a very special way. So I do hope you enjoy their contribution to the worship service today.
Thanks, Laura, and thank you so much, and welcome. We frame our time together in the scripture found from the Gospel of Luke, and this is actually a part of a larger story called the parable of the Samaritan. But it is this particular text upon which I ask that you open your heart and consider, particularly as we talk about immigration, migrants, and refugees this day. An expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" He answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this, and you will live."
Hi, my name is Nora Montañez Patterson, and I am a theater creator here in Minnesota. I am a playwright, I'm a performer, I am a singer, a musician, I am an educator. I teach at St. Paul Conservatory for the Performing Arts as a faculty, staff, and I am also an arts advocate. I was born in Lima, Peru, to two enthusiastic musicians. My mother was a singer and a dancer, and my father was a musician, and he dabbled in dance as well. So I was raised in the arts. I was raised in dance halls and restaurants and dressing rooms. That was my playground. We immigrated to New York, Queens, New York, and when I was at the age of 3. And I remember asking my parents at a later age, asking them to tell me their story, their immigration story. And they both told me that it was very challenging. They lost a lot. They lost community in my country. They lost relationships, and they lost family members. They lost history. And however, we were very lucky because we arrived here to some family who had arrived earlier. And but also very challenging as well, because I feel like the American mentality is you get here and you just do what you need to do in order to succeed. And so very little is handed down. And so that was very challenging for my parents. So my father worked constantly and we rarely saw him. And my mother stayed at home and raised us. And you could tell that a lot of the weight and stress to assimilating to this new country was taking a toll on her mental health. I was lucky because my parents raised me with all of the beautiful culture, all of our music, our food, even though there were things that I still wanted, or I still was needing me to assimilate to this country. We still held on to our language. We still held on to our culture. And so I was really, really blessed in that regard. So much so that I was a very expressive child. I was different. I was told, because I was the oldest of 4 on my mother's side, that I was very enthusiastic and very leading my mom's path, which is all about music, all about just being invested in art. And my father, actually. My father continues to perform now. And so that led me to have the love of the arts. And my parents continued dancing and performing in my country for a very, very long time until they eventually separated and we moved to New Jersey. And that's where I was raised. Being an immigrant for me is a part of my identity that I hold very, very dear. As a creative artist, I move forward with that thought of as a playwright, I write plays based on the ever expansiveness of what Latinidad means. We're not a monolithic culture. Our countries come from very different socioeconomic statuses, skin color, language and music and food. And so for me, my indigenous Peruvian lifestyle has really informed me who I am. A lot of the plays that I write are surrounding the Latinidad culture and all of the characters that I also portray on stage. So all of that included what my parents raised me to be has really informed me of who I am. I don't shy away from saying that I'm an immigrant. I embrace it. I love it. That is me. And I know that there are communities that really are afraid. And I have the benefit, I have the privilege of saying, I know 2 languages. I am documented in this country. I am educated. I live in a neighborhood where societally, culturally, and economically, I am safe. And so that's something that as an advocate, I move forward with. And it is a great pleasure to share my story with you all. And I know that that was just a little snippet of who I am, but know that a part of being in Plymouth is also sharing and being true to who I am. And that is what I show every Sunday coming in. So thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing everyone else's stories.
It's an honor for me to light our peace candle this morning. And I do so offering a prayer for God's protection and grace to surround each and every human, risking everything for a chance to know peace, to celebrate home, to find sanctuary. Especially this day, may we remember the arduous journeys of migrants and refugees, and may we open our hearts with radical hospitality as we welcome new neighbors. Amen.
The cherub choir is leading us in our peace candle response, and partway through I'm going to turn around and we will sing the same response. So if you look at your music, the words are Funga, Alafia, Ashe, Ashe, and you'll learn that as they sing. So I'll turn and welcome you, and please do your best halfway through with this welcome song.
Ashe, morning. My name is Sarah Adams, and I am the coordinator for the AID program at Interfaith Coalition on Immigration. AID is a program which provides emotional support and material resources to asylum seekers, undocumented immigrants, and detainees. The activism we practice is pragmatic. AID volunteers are like frontline workers who respond to the basic needs of some of the most vulnerable members of our society. You might wonder, why are immigrants so vulnerable? The answer is they have virtually no safety net. If you are not part of an immigrant community, you might not know much about how hard it is to be here. There's a lot of poverty, a lot of uncertainty about the future, and a lot of fear. People don't come to this country because it's easy. They come because conditions in their homeland are untenable. You have to be desperate to make that journey. In AID, right now we have a family who recently fled Venezuela. They knew no one here in Minnesota, so their plan was to live at the airport. They had nowhere else to go. A Good Samaritan found them, and AID helped them find shelter, clothing for the Minnesota winter, and food. I often get the question, can't they apply for assistance? And the answer is no. I became interested in immigrant justice because I used to work in social services. I worked for a home visiting program in which 85% of our participants were foreign-born. The contract with them was to provide services to a family for 2 years, and I visited each family twice a week. There's no space more intimate than going into someone's home. I became familiar to them and then became trusted with their stories. The two common themes were fleeing violence and escaping poverty. As a visitor, most immigrants I met were extremely gracious. They would send me home with food, make me handmade gifts, invite me to their baptisms and weddings. They were really hard workers. Adults often work 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet. They're loving parents. They're interested in the success of their children. And despite hardship, their faith carries them. Conversations often began and ended with, si Dios quiera, which is Spanish for if God wills it, or inshallah, which is Arabic for if Allah wills it. As a home visitor, I was often the only native-born Minnesotan they knew, and their communities welcomed me into their homes. The first thing that impressed me was how extensive immigrant communities actually are. I would drive around the metro area looking for the addresses of my clients. Driving, I saw the familiar sound barriers that line the highway corridors, but later I began to see the walls, endless apartment building complexes that line the frontage roads. You might have seen them. They line every highway in the metro area from White Bear Lake to Chanhassen, and those were the buildings where my clients lived. Whole complexes are filled with people from Mexico or Liberia or people from Somalia. Right here behind Plymouth Church, there is a building solely filled with residents from the Gambia in Africa. I spent a lot of time in that building. Poverty was pervasive. Even in buildings that look tidy on the outside, it's common for 6 or 10 or 14 people to live in 2-bedroom apartments. They slept in shifts because there are not 14 beds, but that's what families can afford. Landlords don't always make repairs. I remember on one occasion when the ceiling was literally falling down in chunks. One chunk actually fell down on a home visitor. The landlord made it clear that complaining meant eviction, and the family didn't want to pursue their rights. They were too afraid. But this poverty is also relative. One client told me, in America, there is no poverty. I don't agree, but there are degrees of desperation. One woman spoke of famine. the rain stopped falling, and the crops wouldn't grow. To survive, villages emptied except for the elderly. Grandparents were left behind to care for small children that the mothers left behind. It's an impossible choice for parents to leave their children behind, but it is an act of love. Parents send money home for offspring they might never see again. We hear in the news about unaccompanied minors. Some of those children of our neighbors are those unaccompanied minors. One client I had drove to Arizona to meet her 12-year-old son who had just crossed the border. He came alone by land from Ecuador. The rules for public assistance are really complicated. You have to be more than just poor. You have to inhabit a category. If you were born here, you qualify. If you have a green card, you qualify. If you have been granted asylum, you qualify. But if you're here lawfully seeking asylum, you probably don't qualify. And if you are undocumented, you definitely don't qualify. Without safety nets, crises are like dominoes. For me, the greatest irony in working for social services was that most of the clients I'd been hired to help couldn't access most of the resources my agency had to offer. So I personally started to feel really cynical. And then I discovered faith communities. In about 2016, I began to solicit funds from an area church, and I went around the neighborhoods and gave out packets of cash to help pay people's rent. I felt rebellious, like I was circumventing the system, and actually, I kind of think I was. It was an aha moment for me, because faith communities can respond in ways that social services can't. These are not just places of doctrines and creeds, but they can be manifestations of action and radical kindness. The role of the faith community in immigrant justice is really, the work is really, really important. Thank you.
La vida coquetea con risa de amor. La muerte se agiganta en pleno valor. El tiempo se atraganta y llora perdón. Amores y nostalgia gritando. Al último rincón. La sangre brota en tierra, soplo de aflicción. Vueltas y más vueltas rondan claridad. Lloro se enloda en la negociación.
cover-ups and lies be forbidden. Let the voice of the witness be valued. Weep for us, O God. Weep for us. Weep for us, O God. Weep for us.
My name is Barbara Reed. I'm a member of the Immigrant Welcoming Working Group. And as you can see this morning, we in the Plymouth community work really hard to live by our faith commitment to welcome the stranger into our lives, into our community, into our church. And with this in mind, a group of 20-some Plymouthites journeyed to the Arizona-Mexican border in February 2020 to welcome immigrants into our country with food and clothing and transportation assistance. But what happens when you're prevented from welcoming the stranger? You see, right before our trip was to begin, there was a hard and fast policy implemented by the previous administration to remain in Mexico. So we found ourselves going on a trip to welcome immigrants that weren't going to be arriving into Arizona. Well, we were undeterred. We changed our focus slightly, and it became a trip of immersion, a pilgrimage in a sort. And we took on the task of listening deeply to the stories of the migrants, but we went to them. In a way, we became the strangers at their shelters in Mexico, where we were welcomed with warm hospitality. We learned about their challenges and tried to figure out our very complex and convoluted immigration system. And we lamented. We shared their sadness and grief at having to leave everything behind in such a traumatic way to seek a better, safer life in the unknown. So, ways in which we were welcomed as strangers were mostly in shelters in Mexico, but we were also welcomed into a dining room in a women's co-op in Mexico, in which a group of women who had left Sinaloa some years earlier were doing what women do so wonderfully in many cultures. They were growing food, they welcomed us with a delicious home-cooked meal, they shared the products of their sewing cooperative. It was very, very uplifting. And then we had a different kind of experience, one that sticks very strongly in my own mind. When we were getting ready to leave Mexico, we made one last stop near the entrance to the border control at the US border. And there on a sidewalk was a family from Guerrero province, huddled under a black tarp. A piece of tarp stretched from the sidewalk to a fence, and the family was huddled there in the darkness for several days in a row. Why? Well, they were waiting their turn to be processed as asylum seekers, and they didn't want to lose their place in line, their chance to plead their case. So underneath the tarp was a father who spoke with us, who shared their story, who trusted us, because it was dangerous for him to be standing there on the sidewalk. Two little boys emerged, clung, frightened, very frightened, to his pant leg. And finally, a very pregnant indigenous mother appeared from under the tarp, speaking no Spanish and certainly no English. Well, later we left and returned home with much learning, much awareness, and a strong commitment to return the favor, to tackle some projects, big and small, to promote immigration justice in our own country. And we realized, at least I did, that welcoming the stranger is a very important thing, but sometimes it's worth it, well worth it, to step outside one's own comfort zone and be the stranger. Allow ourselves to accept the hospitality of the other in whatever way they wish to provide it. But right before we left Arizona, one final example. Just as we were leaving Arizona, we stopped by a beautifully remodeled shelter in Tucson. And of course, there was nobody there. There were no immigrants there, a few volunteers. And who should be there but the family from under the tarp, the 4 individuals who had successfully crossed into the United States and were smiling with confidence and making arrangements to go to their sponsors' homes in Florida, eating, the little boys running around kind of wildly, playing with toys, doing art therapy, and all of them receiving excellent medical care. Well, how do I know that they were getting excellent medical care? Well, the volunteer doctor working that day was my own retired physician from the Twin Cities. So Dr. Erdman found a wonderful way to welcome the stranger into our shores. And certainly, most of us can't give up everything and go down to Arizona to volunteer in this way. But we certainly can find ways in our own lives to welcome the stranger. Little things, big projects, whatever works in your lives. So a couple of ways that people are welcoming the stranger into the Plymouth community. Some of our group members are working tirelessly in advocacy for the immigrant with organizations like your own. Some of us are taking action, and maybe some of you are included in this group, by purchasing just coffee. Well, that's one way to assist farmers in the coffee growing region in Chiapas, far south Mexico, to stay in their villages because they can earn a decent wage by working around the middleman, growing their organic coffee, sending it to northern Mexico to be roasted, and directly to us. And finally, we speak up. When we hear disparaging comments about immigrants, asylees, resident aliens, migrants, and so forth, those of us who went on the trip remember gazing into the eyes of a migrant father holding his little girl in his arms in a shelter in Mexico. And at that point, we were pretty discouraged. How can we help? What can we do to support you, support other migrants? Well, his answer was immediate and piercing. He looked into our eyes and he said, "Tell the American people que no somos criminales." We are not criminals. No somos criminales. So that message will be with us as many of us participate in the vigil that Plymouth Church is sponsoring in early November. So consider coming that morning to the Whipple Building, joining together in song, in meaningful words, poetry, and so forth. And maybe there'll be a little bit of just coffee thrown in as well. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to thank, first of all, the musicians. Thank you very much. The speakers, thank you. The staff, everybody who is here, thank you very much. We have about 2 minutes. So I want to be very brief. Where is God in all of this? Why does God let this happen? Why can't God just fix it? And I have a minute to answer that question. The answer for me, I learned in seminary, is process theology, which says that in every millisecond, God knows what everyone's choice should be throughout the whole world for there to be true peace and harmony throughout the world. So what gets in the way? God doesn't control us. The other influence in our life is everything that's ever happened to us, every experience that we've ever had. And there are these 2 experiences. So for some, God just can't work through them. God is closed off. So what can we do? We can be open to God Start your day, start every moment being open to this God that is all about love and knows, again, in every millisecond, what each one of us should do for there to be peace and harmony throughout the world. We are called to do that. So that's what we can do. And you can do it by attending study groups, the forums like the one today, by attending the vigils, the one in November that's coming up, contacting your politicians, having conversations with family, friends, and coworkers, including those who disagree with you, speaking up for the most vulnerable, and working for justice wherever you can. In every moment of every day, be open to those possibilities and do these things with an openness to God. And in the process, you are putting good stuff in your past that God can use to make a difference. And you're putting good stuff in other people's pasts that God can use to influence us to make the world a better place. Be open to the incredible power of this love as much as you can. It is life-changing for so many. Amen. We are about to sing a song, God of Mercy, at whose call, and I want to just make a comment about it. It's a beautiful song that goes in so many directions, but my theology says that we don't have to ask God for mercy. In any relationship, it's only in an abusive relationship where you need to ask for mercy. And God's pure love is pure, and we don't need to ask God for mercy. But the rest of the song is so great. The other piece is, God doesn't control the oceans. Our climate issues are causing all kinds of problems. But again, the rest of the song is so great. So, thank you.
Will you please stand? We are going to sing verses 1 and 4.
O God of mercy, at whose call the ocean waters rise and fall, protect the people on the sea who from oppression seek to flee. Oh, hear us as our prayers we speak for those who save us by the sea.
Verse 4.
God bless the nation girt by sea with broader hospitality. Make generous hearts around His land. Obey with love your great command. Oh, hear us as our prayers we speak for those who save us by the sea.
You are wonderful people. You are God's people. You have the ability to share that love with so many people. It might just be a smile to somebody along the street, or it might be getting involved with immigrant work. Whatever, open your hearts and your minds and your very souls to that love and share it wherever you go. Amen.
Speaking of the arduous journey that many face, there's a train that goes north, and it's nicknamed the Beast.
Sigur
train of war. Border to jump in a night of calm. Angels attend the busy dance, moving their forms to the rhythm of the train. Hey, don't go there. It's the beast in a cruel disguise. Hey, 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 hey. See the graves in its metal eyes. The journey's long on a hidden path, crossing lands of abandoned dreams. Silent the hours of the passing days, looking for signs of a miracle.